What's up guys, it's Tusk here, and today I'm going to quickly go over how to get the best education in Crusader Kings 3. So education doesn't take any effect until the child is 6 years old, and it's the first thing you need to take into consideration when actually realizing how important education is, and micromanaging your children of course as well. So the moment a child is 6, they will start to roll, but before that you will have a child at 3 years old. They will get their education trait, and you'll basically get to know what their preference is for their education. So this pretty much means that they will get a higher score in diplomacy and learning because the child is curious, and they will get a worse education in martial, and it is a much worse education. You'd never want to take the red one. And both for our daughter here specifically, she is going to be neutral in both intrigue and stewardship. Now if we quickly go to our heir here, we can see that he has already chosen education for himself. It is stewardship focus, which is completely fine, and this is what the AI does. But as we can see, we actually have an option to change the focus once. As you can see here, it says can only change education focus once, and we can actually choose an education here, but I would preferably say you want to choose one of the green ones. Now we'll quickly explain why you want to go over that when we actually talk about the formula just now. So the formula is the success factor divided by the success factor plus the failure factor, then multiply by 100 so you can get a percent, which basically means the base success factor plus whatever modifiers you have. The base success factor is 60, so basically 60 divided by 60 plus 40, then multiply by 100, which is basically just 60%. So basically the base is a success factor of 60%, but what's important to recognize is that each of these stats gives a plus 20. So either if you pick a green one, it gives a plus 20 in success factor, but remember that plus 20 is on both sides of the fraction. Whereas on the other hand, if I was to pick intrigue here, it would be a minus 20 on the failure factor, which is only applied to the bottom fraction, which is going to dramatically decrease our chance of success. In fact, if we had no actual other traits here, and we were a plain character with no guardian or anything, it would be a 50% success chance instead of 60, which is a massive 10% of a difference, which you definitely don't want to take. But yeah, let's talk about how to actually increase the chances. So this would increase, on the other hand, if we picked one of the green ones, that would increase our chances from 60% up to 66.6%, which is definitely what we want to take. So now let's take a look at our guardian, which is us. So as you can see, Solomon here is absolutely incredible. His stats are amazing. He's got the genius trait, and these definitely play a factor into the education of the child. So learning on its own is a 0.2 factor. So if I have 100 learning, it means that we're going to plug into the success factor 20 points into it. Now on the other hand, whatever the learning of the child's factor, so if you have a child that wants to learn stewardship, and you can see that we have 19 stewardship here, it will be 0.4 of 19. But most importantly is the genius trait. So if you have a character that has any of the intelligent traits, both positive and negative, it can have huge increases and absolutely catastrophic decreases, which you definitely do want. You want to avoid all the negative traits possible to do with intelligence, especially because they have cataclysmic effects on your education. Definitely avoid all of them because the negative traits, like I said before, affects only one side of the formula, which is going to dramatically decrease your chances of a successful education. So let's just calculate the success chance of our son here. We can see that he has a base of 60%, right? That's what the base is. But then we add the actual modifiers here. So we have 60, and then we add in the plus 20 because we're going to choose learning. Then we immediately add in the plus 20 from genius. Then we go to our guardian, and then we realize what he's got, and we go, okay, let's add in the plus 15 from our guardian being a genius. Let's add in the 18 from the high learning that we have, and that gives us about a 76% chance of success chance every single year for him to progress towards getting a successful role, which is pretty high chance we're going to get a 3-star trait, if not a 4-star trait, which is what we're hoping for. But this isn't actually the best things in the game. Usually, and if you look at the wiki, it'll prioritize always pick these for guardians, but guardians aren't always the best thing when it comes to actually increasing your trait. There are 2 things in the game which are much better, and the first one, which is weaker but still really good, is studious youth. Studious youth increases the amount of rolls you get. Instead of getting 9, you get 10. You get a 10th one at 16, so that's a pretty big advantage, and you get a free 2 points immediately just by being part of this dynasty. So you only need to get 7 rolls instead of 8 out of the 10 now instead of 9, which is going to substantially increase the chances of all your dynasty members getting better educations. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is the best way to increase the education of your child in the entire game, and that is universities. Now, as we can see here, we have a university here in Naples, which is one of the universities in the game. There's a bunch of them all over the map. We have some in Alexandria, there's 2 in England, there's some in Spain, and there's some in India, and in the Middle East as well. And these are probably the best things in the entire game. In one of my previous videos, I mentioned how you want to increase the development of your land as soon as possible where there is a university, and because you need 40 development to actually create and found the university, and then you actually have to build the university afterwards. But most importantly, something to take into consideration is how expensive it actually is to send a child to university. But it is very much worth it. It says we'll get better education than usual, but it is much better than that. Your child is guaranteed to get 12 points, and that means they're only 3 points away from getting a 4-star education. If you have studious youth, that means they have 14 points that immediately just by being sent to university. So this pretty much means that they themselves are guaranteed a 4-star education, because the chances of them not rolling once throughout any of their 10 rolls or 9 rolls if you don't have studious youth then is pretty much 0 or next to 0. So always send someone to university. The sooner you get a university, the better, because you're pretty much guaranteed. You don't even need to go down the intelligent trait route if you really don't want to, as long as you can get a university fast enough. And this is something I would definitely recommend taking, and that's for sure. So the last thing I want to talk about is prowess and base stats. So prowess in the game is impacted the moment you actually get the knighthood trait. You can actually get a bunch of martial education traits that increase your prowess, and we'll just quickly jump into our dynasty here and have a look at our living members that are high in prowess. We have Harold here. We can see that he has 17 prowess and is increased by being a famous champion, and this is impacted by the fact that he is robust. This increases his success chance. All of the prowess traits have an increased chance of giving you a better prowess education, you could say. This is not affected by universities or anything along those lines. It's only affected by their actual innate talent, you could, if you want to call it that. But they do stack. So if you have a character that is, or a child that is strong, Herculean and giant, they're going to pretty much guaranteed to get famous champion almost, and have a significantly higher chance of like getting the stat. Obviously it's nowhere near as impactful as the other one, but it definitely does make an impact. Now the last thing I want to talk about is base stats. So first thing you'll want to do almost every single character is select pedagogy. I don't mind what education you are, it doesn't really matter. Just select pedagogy because you're going to want to educate your children anyway, and halfway through your life you'll want to go for groom to rule. Now the reason for this is because base stats actually affect how much base stats your children are going to have. If I had really high base stats, which I don't on this character, my highest base stat is actually diplomacy, which is unfortunate. But basically, the higher your base stat, the higher your children's base stats are going to be. And if you're constantly increasing the base stats of your children, and then your grandchildren with your next heir, and then your next grandchildren, and then your great grandchildren, etc., then your base stats are going to increase slowly over time until eventually you've got extremely high base statted characters. Now, what's important to recognize though is it's not just you that impacts this, your wife will also impact this. So the parents, you want both parents to have extremely high base stats, and the children are more likely to have extremely high base stats. As the wiki says, basically, if I had 25 base stats in every single stat, and so did my wife, then that means that every single one of my children would have a guaranteed base stats of 10, excluding the rolls. And the rolls are from 0 years until 1. I will have a chance of rolling between 0 and 4 base stats, and then every single year it's the same until I get hit 16, and then it stops rolling base stats. Unless, of course, you have the what's it called, the graceful aging, then you will keep getting base stats. But other than that, that's pretty much the only means to do it, and I definitely think it's something to take into consideration and do pretty much every single life you have, because base stats are much more important than people realize. So anyway, thanks very much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one.